All right, my phone says 6 o'clock, so I'm going to call the Tuesday, February 24th regular Planning Commission meeting of Long Lake Township to order. I'd like to invite everybody to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Can we get a roll call, please?
Paulson.
Here.
Allen.
Here.
Bott.
Here.
Wagner. Vershave.
Here.
And Wyand and Springsteen are absent and excused.
Thank you. We have a quorum. We'll move on. Next item is approval of the agenda. Does anybody have any items to add or edit to the agenda?
Bob, we did have some late correspondence today from Leighton dated today, and it's all on your desk as well for a hard copy to be added to the correspondence section of the agenda.
I see that. Thank you. So we would add the correspondence, as Cody mentioned.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as written with the addition of the correspondence from tonight. I'll second that.
So motion by Max and support by Dan to approve the agenda as amended. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That agenda is approved. Next item, conflict of interest. Does anybody on the commission have a conflict with tonight's business? Seeing none, we'll move on to public comment. First public comment period. We also have a public hearing tonight, so we will be receiving public comment on that topic at that time. Anybody wants to make a public comment? I think you know the drill, name and address.
Really? My first time.
3 minutes.
Okay. This will be short. I know it's unusual. Chris Crew, 3016 Collier Road. I see on the agenda is topics for 2026 priorities, and I'm hoping that we can resurrect some of the things that have been stuck. Things like the activity center, zoning ordinance changes. I believe the subplan has been approved. The tree ordinance, we've lost Sherry, but I think Pete was also as part of that subcommittee and that the public group, input group, that he'll probably champion that back in. So we got activity center, trees, and the accessory dwelling units. So looking forward to seeing that on this year's agenda. Thanks.
Thanks, Chris.
I told you it was short and sweet.
Would anybody else like to speak at this time? All right, seeing nobody coming forward, we will move on to approval of the minutes. Our last meeting was in December 2nd, actually. We have minutes from that meeting. Is there any comments or edits from them? I think 4 of us were there. Or maybe not. Is there support?
I'll support that. Were you at the meeting, Bob?
I was.
Okay. Says absent, maybe we should. Oh, no, it doesn't.
No, I was there.
It says Vice Chair Wyand called it to order. Is that correct? this was through me.
Are you,
Call to order by Vice Chair Ryan, it says at the top. Meeting on December 2nd.
oh.
I'm assuming that's incorrect.
Yeah, that should be. Oh, yeah,
Yeah, it's a typo, I believe.
yeah.
So Dan will
I
want
think- yes.
to adjust his motion if he desires so to make that adjustment.
So we have an amended motion by Dan and support by Max to approve the minutes. Is there any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Minutes are approved. I think I might have missed the previous meeting, so.
Typo, probably.
We have no postponed business, so we're up to item 8, public hearing. This is for zoning ordinance amendment 02-26-01, a proposal to amend zoning ordinance number 109, Article 15, local business district to allow manufactured housing communities as a permitted use and add section 15.5, setting controlling standards. In addition, changing the minimum parcel area from 15 acres to 10 acres in size. Presentation by Cody, please.
All right.
Thank you.
So we received a zoning ordinance amendment application. When one comes in, our duty as the planning commission is to review the application and then make a recommendation to the township board. Regardless if you recommend to adopt or recommend to deny, at some point you would have to make a decision to push it to the township board with a recommendation. This application, at the end of the day, would add manufactured housing communities to Article 15, local business district, and it would change a controlling standard from 15 acres minimum to 10 acres in size. We received this application from the current owners and operators of Suburban Estates, which is across from Fresh Coast on the straight North Long, East Long intersection, if you're familiar with that area. Currently, as it sits, the owners and operators of Suburban Estates are operating a legally existing non-conforming use, meaning we don't currently allow manufactured housing communities in local business district. It was established there before that zoning regulation went into place. So they do not have the ability to meet zoning standards if they were to move or enlarge any of the units that are currently existent in that parcel. I put a bunch of attachments here for us to review tonight for considerations along with the memo. Those include the notice of the public hearing, the AEI Roaring Fork LLC application, along with a memo that has a considerable amount of attachments to look through, draft resolution, so when you make your decision, we'll have that language ready to go towards the board. And as far as my memo goes with review considerations, like I mentioned, it's existing non-conforming, so if the owner-operator decided to want to currently change the layout or expand the layout of their housing community, they would not be allowed to do so. If this regulation is adopted by the township board, the owners and operators would still have the burden of coming before the planning commission to show any site plan improvements. The use would be allowed under a permitted use, but the site plan would still be subject to review by the 7 of you folks, 5 of you tonight. As part of the review considerations, I just briefly spoke about non-conforming uses and how those work. I'd be happy to go into more detail if you have questions, and the site plan requirements. I did include a few chapters or excerpts from our master plan that was passed in 2024, explaining the goal and objective of allowing or changing the zoning ordinance to allow the expansion on that parcel of a manufactured housing community, or at least at minimum the relocation of some of the units on that property. I think that's a good introduction, and I'll let you take it from there.
Thanks, Cody.
Mhm.
I guess, questions, does anybody have any questions for Cody right now? I might have a few. I guess I'm just, maybe a little bit more of a overview of the master plan areas where this is discussed, and
Mhm.
I think that would be helpful for
Of course. So
commissioners and public alike.
the three areas of the master plan that I included in this for your review is Chapter 9, which talks about implementation, Chapter 8, which talks about future land use plans, specifically in the activity centers, and then Chapter 7, which is goals and objectives. Sorry, I did that in reverse chronological order. It just happens to be the way that I read the master plan today. So first, in Chapter 9, which gives us our to-do list, our implementation tasks. If you look under item B, housing, and item number, what is that, 9? IX 9, it says to revise regulations to allow relocation and expansion of the existing mobile home park. And it goes into a little further detail. Chapter 8 has similar language talking about allowing suburban estates to expand or relocate based on the activity center goals. And I can find the exact wording for you here. Transportation. Apologies, I didn't have it highlighted on this copy. Industrial. The township should accommodate the expansion or redevelopment of the mobile home park located on Straight Road. The park is aging and is currently not a permitted use under the zoning. The park is in the heart of the planned activity center, North Activity Center. Higher residential densities are appropriate here to support the expansion of services and public facilities in the area. Allowances of the redevelopment or reasonable expansion of the mobile home park or the addition of other high-density residential types is appropriate for this location. So just to clarify, the applicant is looking for a zoning ordinance change not to change the housing type, but rather to expand the mobile home park. So currently existing use, but just larger because the whole parcel is not currently being utilized. And then Chapter 7 has, again, similar language when it comes to the master plan and future uses with the activity center section. And where's that? Talks about non-chain, roundabout. So it says in order to realize, this is item H under objectives of goal 7A. In order to realize the goals of providing resiliency, relocation of existing roads, and providing access to the mobility options for a larger portion of the township's population, allow for the relocation and expansion of the existing mobile home park, higher density or smaller footprint of homes, or alternative housing types within the community center area. So again, the applicant isn't asking for different home types, they're asking for the expansion of the existing mobile home park. So I included those in the master plan just to point out that in 2024, when these are passed, that is something that was on the minds of both the Planning Commission and the Township Board to allow for in the future. And instead of waiting for us to get to that point, the applicant has asked for a rezone or a zoning ordinance amendment that would allow for those items to take place.
My recollection of discussions way back then also were kind of with respect to the peanut.
Yeah.
Yep, the road commission was pursuing and still is pursuing that.
So the road commission is still pursuing funding for intersection improvements for the straight East Long, North Long intersection. We have lovingly called that the peanut roundabout. Their final designs are dependent on multiple factors, including funding and when it gets approved. So there was talk, and I don't know if there still is, about the 6 mobile homes that are on the southwestern edge of the park needing to be relocated in order for the road commission to fit in there. I don't know if that's still something the road commission would need. Obviously, it would give them some help if they did have more room. But if the road commission came today and asked us if the owner operators would be willing to move it, even if they were willing to move it, they wouldn't be allowed under zoning. So would be handcuffing the road commission at that point if they need that extra space.
Okay.
Can you explain, Cody, the acreage? So the 10
Yep.
10 acres is the whole park, or that's just the part that's undeveloped?
No, so I don't have the exact number of the total acres that are undeveloped, but the 15 to 10 is mobile, manufactured housing communities are also regulated by the state through a public act in 1989. They don't set standards for minimum parcel size. They allow local government to do that. So we currently set the 15-acre standard for minimum. So you have to have at least 15 acres to even apply for or establish a new manufactured housing community. Kyle, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you have 27 acres, or about
It's just under 25.
25 acres. And part of their discussion with Eagle, because they need to be permitted for water and septic, is that Eagle will permit 1 permit per parcel. And so they have a current system that allows them to meet the needs of their existing units. But if they were to expand, the potential is they either need to redo the system that's in the ground already or split the parcel in 2 and put a new system in the ground for the second part. So that would be the.
I'm sorry, it's not entirely true.
Oh, okay.
You're on the right path, but I don't know if it's appropriate for me at this point.
Yeah, and
That's okay.
I apologize.
Yeah, no worries.
I skipped the item 2 for comments and explanations by the applicant, so I will let you
Yeah, absolutely.
wherever you're comfortable. Thank you.
Name and address, is that right, or no?
Yeah, just to be consistent.
No worries.
for the record.
Kyle Stoner, 744 Avenida Leon, San Marcos, California. So thanks for having me here. I appreciate it. So the genesis for this request actually comes down to the existing residents that are at the park. We're at a point where, let me back up. When we purchased the park, our wastewater permit was not in good standing with the state of Michigan. So we worked with Eagle. Tina, Dan, it sounds like you've done a lot of work with Eagle as well as maybe some of you folks here before. So we worked with Eagle to reinstate that wastewater permit, and we've also made some substantial upgrades to the existing wastewater infrastructure that's there since we've become owners of the park. We're at a point right now where our Eagle permit needs to be renewed. We've submitted that application for renewal, and we're kind of in, Eagle purgatory, so to speak, at the moment. They are requiring of us, at least the last time we spoke to them, an infrastructure improvement that's economically unfeasible for us, which ultimately, if Eagle decided to force that upon us, that would mean that we wouldn't make that investment, and some of the residents would be forced to leave that community. It comes down to the type of permit that we have, the amount of gallons of wastewater we're allowed to disperse into the ground on a daily basis versus the rules that Eagle has in place. So in other words, I have historical averages that say we discharge this. They don't care about that. They want me to factor in this. So the idea right now is that if we had 2 parcels, because they will only allow 1 permit per parcel, we could have a duplicative permit on the adjacent parcel, thus kind of avoiding not necessarily all of it, but a portion of that investment amount. We'd still have to make a substantial investment in it to accomplish this, but it would allow us to retain the residents that are there. And then yes, in the future, we don't currently have plans for the expansion, but I can't say that might not change, or the subsequent owner, should there be one, they may have those plans. So that's the genesis for this request. And I also can't have a permit on a property that doesn't have, a use that exists for that wastewater permit. In other words, I would have to have, a coach or a home or 2 on that parcel to utilize that permit, which is where the 6 mobile homes come in along North Long Lake Road. We thought that, you know, the fine details of what that road intersection may look like in the future highly likely will require some land from us or a future owner. And, you know, if those mobile homes weren't there today, that would be much more, that would provide a lot more flexibility for you all as a township should that funding come through from Grand Traverse County. So we would ultimately just be able to move those sooner rather than later and have that vacant land sitting there. So I'll pause right there. I know that was a lot, but, you know, maybe I can answer some questions for you.
Yeah, go
I
ahead.
have a question.
Yeah.
So right now, we're just talking about a rezone, not even a rezoning, change in zoning language, right?
Mhm.
But, so, I'm a little confused, so you're not thinking that you're gonna come forward in the next couple months with a new site plan review or something different?
No.
It's because you want to be able to get another Eagle, a permit, right?
Right.
So, to do that, though, so they would allow you to have that service on a different parcel than where the mobile homes are?
So far, we've spoken with the local health department. We've spoken with our engineers. You know, this, you know, Eagle's an interesting, you know, department to work with. So we're very reluctant as owners to approach them with our plan until we have our pieces put together. But in speaking with the local health department and our engineers who've worked with Eagle a lot, shared infrastructure, right, with adjacent parcels with two separate permits has a high probability of success. Does that answer your question?
It does, but
Okay.
what then it leads me to is, so does that mean that, is that infrastructure there for a different use? If you decide not to develop and there's extra property there, would that be?
Well, so I would ultimately have to actually, we're getting into the details here, but I'm happy to talk about it. I would ultimately have to move, I'm just gonna make this up, half of the existing homes that are there onto the new infrastructure because of the calculations that they are requiring of us. And I don't know, it might not be half, it might be like, of the 75, maybe 20 and 50 can stay on,
My concern
right?
is more about, does that, we're asking for some addition to uses in that area, so does that then change what could be there based on what you're doing?
I think it also might be important to note, if I may have missed this, if Cody did not mention it, this is the only parcel that would be affected by this zoning change. Is that accurate?
Correct.
Meaning the 15 down to 10 acres.
Sorry for the folks at home. The current minimum of 15 or even the proposed minimum of 10 doesn't affect any other local business zoned parcels currently. So even though you'd be changing an article, you'd really only be affecting one parcel.
That existing.
One existing parcel, potential two parcels in the future.
And I apologize, Tita, I don't want to, you asked me a direct question and I quickly said no, just to be clear. You said, would we be coming forward in
No, I'm.
2 or 3 months to do a site plan? I said no. I can't say that I wouldn't be with, you know, a certain number of them just to maybe move some or whatever. But I don't have a site plan with 100 additional sites in my back pocket right now. No, I don't.
There's two adjacent parcels that have that same zoning district. So in theory, they could be acquired by these folks,
Sure.
and then they would satisfy the minimum acreage. So the current zoning parcels don't meet that 10 or 15. But if they were to be acquired, the church parcel comes to mind for instance.
Potentially, I don't remember the exact,
And I'm not
It's under
saying-
5.
it's under
I was
5.
gonna say, I don't know the add up.
But if that were to be acquired and that became part of the parent parcel, I mean, that could be expanded. And I'm not saying that that's necessarily a bad thing, but as I'm to understand what's been put in front of me though, to say that it would only affect this parcel, and I'm not saying that that it would, but I don't know that that's entirely accurate. I just went,
As things are, with the current lots of record
Yeah.
and current zoning, this is the only parcel it would affect.
right,
If there was a change to the parcel dimensions or legal description, it has the potential to include other parcels in the near vicinity with the same zoning district.
right. And this zoning district only exists in the straight road, North Long Lake Road corner, and then there's the old former Long Lake School parcel, and then there's the other business area over by like Wheelock Welding.
Yeah, I
Those
believe there's 5 or
parcels
6 there
are-
that.
And those parcels are much smaller, and they're all, I think, pretty well developed.
Correct, and the old Long Lake School is actually conditionally zoned LBD, so if they abandon the use of food for thought, it actually goes back, reverses to local business, or low-density residential. So it's a conditionally zoned parcel, so that one wouldn't even take effect for a different use than what it currently has.
Is that something that's been discussed with the applicant, conditional zoning for this parcel?
I don't believe we allow conditional zoning for this type of use, I'd have to look into that. Because that use is currently zoned one district, and usually you conditionally zone it to a different district. But the only other district that they would allow manufactured housing communities would be either medium density or high density res. So I'd have to look and see if that's even a possibility to conditionally zone them.
I mean, I know we can't force the property owner to conditionally zone. I mean,
Sure.
that would be something that they would need to, I'm just curious if that's been part of the discussion, because there are 2 other fairly decent-sized parcels right next to it. And I'm not saying that that wouldn't be a bad place to maybe expand the park. That church parcel's been sitting there underutilized for many years. Just, if we rezone it, I just want everybody to be aware that that could be an expansion of your park. I don't know if that's something you've contemplated, or,
We do not have plans to acquire the entire church property at this time.
you said the entire church property, is there?
Well, there's a negotiation, ongoing negotiation for a small portion of the western part of that property at this time.
Okay.
That's pretty much all I can actually say about it.
That's fine.
Yeah.
I have no knowledge of any of this stuff. I'm
Yeah.
not trying to put you on the spot. I'm just
Yeah,
trying
no,
to
yeah.
get all the cards on the table and have a productive discussion here. And
Yeah, absolutely.
folks will end up with something.
There's an encroachment by our park eastward onto the western portion of their property that we're negotiating at this time.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah.
Question?
I think my question's to Cody. Do we have-
That's fine, we can bounce them off either or, I think, at this point.
So the colors on the map are sometimes hard to distinguish.
Mm-hmm.
So Dan was mentioning, because we're talking about changing language, allowing for use within a existing zoning district.
Yep.
So there is property, I believe, that across from like Wheelock's, that for Long Lake, that business.
Yep, I know what you're talking about.
Do we have any idea what the total acreage is there, if somebody wanted to?
No, but if you give me a minute, I can do it on the fly calculation for you.
I don't know what you think.
Talk amongst yourselves, I'll figure that out just.
And then the only other thing is, nobody's gonna know this, so I'm just gonna throw it out here. Does anybody know what year we made that non-conforming? Was that, were we on it, Bob?
No.
I don't know off the top of my head.
Because originally, that was conforming.
Correct.
And we changed, Long Lake Township changed the zoning ordinance and the map to make it non-conforming, and to make sure everybody gets non-conforming. You can't do anything on your property if it's non-conforming. So we're either saying you can't do anything, or we're putting a use in that's already in existence, that's recommended in the master plan. But I do want to know about the question.
Certainly, I'll calculate that here for you.
While you're calculating that, I guess,
You can talk and calculate.
yeah. So, I'm familiar with Eagle, I'm familiar with wastewater. I think several of us here are and have the ability to understand that, I guess. Does the issues with your current permit kind of boil down to the land required to apply the effluent, and you don't have enough to, on the current site?
No, so where this, let me see. We approached Eagle roughly a year ago, and we wanted to make the final infrastructure improvement to our entire system. So if I separated it into, 4 parts, very simplistically, right? It would be the electrical that is needed to operate, that would be 1, that is needed to operate the pumps, that would be 2, to, take all of the, liquids from the tanks, that would be 3, out to the drain field, which would be 4, right? And I know there's a lot more to it than that, I'm just trying to keep it super simple. Before we came, all the electricity was updated. We've updated all of the holding tanks and the pumps. And then the last piece was replacing the leach fields. And when we approached Eagle to replace the leach fields, they had said, we're going to consider you a brand new system now. And so we don't care that your historical averages are 115 gallons per day per site. We're going to make you calculate off of 200, which pushes us up into a significantly larger permit, which requires a pretreatment facility for the location. So not necessarily the ground or having enough room for it, it's just comes down to what calculations they want to apply to the number of sites that we have there at the property.
So does the shared infrastructure scenario on the property we're talking about, that reduces the level to where you won't have to have pretreatment?
Yeah, so basically I would have a duplicative 10,000 gallon permit. So I have a 10, I say I, it's we, whatever. We have a 10,000 gallon per day permit on the current site. And what they're asking for us is a 20,000 gallon permit. And so if that's a single permit on one site, that's when the pretreatment is required. And so if we would have 2 parcels, 2 permits at 10,000 apiece, the idea is that would be sufficient for them.
So then that kind of like, so everybody understands, I think that kind of then determines your max build out.
Correct.
So at 10,000 per site for a total of 20,000, and each site is 200 gallons per day,
It's 100, so max 25 more sites. Yep.
100 sites, and what you're at now?
75.
So you're looking at most expanding to 200, or to 25 more.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Which wouldn't even, that would, so our current park sits on roughly 15 acres. The excess in the northwest corner that comes westward towards Strait is plus or minus another 10. So, what are those, and again, we don't have plans for, but if somebody ever did it in the future, maybe it's us, maybe it's somebody else, I can't imagine that would take up more than, 2/3 at the most of that land back there.
Yeah, Dan?
I think that the 20,000 gallons is where their requirements increase. It's conceivable that you could do 2 18,000 gallon permits, correct?
That, I don't know that for sure.
I think that, just in terms of talking about the limitations of the site, I think that's, so we're probably talking more than 100 units, which I think is.
I'm pretty sure that's not the case.
Oh.
Just from my experience. I think 20,000 between the two would be the limit that they're setting. When you get over 10,000, that's in a different permit level, that's different. That's where they're taking it that they can't go to, is what you're saying.
That's my understanding of it, but I got to tell you, there's a lot of nuances in this.
When you start getting into like the levels more than 10,000, you need pre-treatment, and then you're looking at like full treatment, like building a wastewater plant, which you don't want to know the cost of those.
That's why we're not going to do it.
Keep in mind that at some point in the future, it's conceivable that municipal sewer will eventually. It's 1.5 miles away right now, so we're not there yet, but
Yeah, that's another.
it's about 16 acres, I think, Cody.
You're spot on. My assessed acreage that I have is 16.06.
I had 03, so.
That's for
So
the,
someone would have to buy it all.
Well, if you approve the change to minimum of 10, they would have to buy most. Then they would have to abandon the current uses, and then this would be a use by right, so they'd have the right to do the use, but then they'd have to come with a site plan in front of you that would match that, and then on top of that, get all the outside agency approval, so road commission, Eagle, all the others, and, yeah.
It's been a long time since I've worked on mobile home community, but it seems to me that there's some, only have to satisfy like state standards or something, kind of like schools. Is that still the case? There is some protections from local zoning?
So there are some protections, in the essence of the state sets a lot of like the layout and design and minimum lot size and those types of things through their public act, can't remember the exact number, 68 of 89, something like that, so we couldn't say you have to have a mobile home unit on 1,500 square feet. The state actually does that through their Manufactured Housing Commission. So we don't get to, through local zoning, pick density of mobile home, but we get to pick location based on district.
Gotcha. Thank you. Very helpful.
Along those lines, are the standards kind of presented as,
So the standards were actually borrowed from Article 14, which is another district we have that allows manufactured housing communities. We took it verbatim, updating 14.4 to 15.5. We sent it to legal to review to make sure there wasn't any contradictions with the Public Manufactured Housing Commission Act of 89, and according to Todd, we are above board on that. So the layout and design, a lot of that wording is taken straight from the state law.
it's kind of how I read it, that it was derived from that, so, okay. Any more questions at this time? So then I guess you can
Good, thank
sit
you.
down, and then we will open this item, this public hearing to public comment at this time. So anybody that would like to offer public comment on this topic, now's your chance. Same rules as normal public comment, name and address, and 3-minute limit, please.
Okay, Lee Day, 2801 Old Barn Road. I just have a question, and perhaps somebody can clarify it for me. So if you do it so it's a 10 and 15, and you change the zoning, I'm going to the West Business District where Wheelock is, and so any parcel that was 10 acres could be turned into a high-density residential. That's my question. Maybe you can clarify.
Cody, could you, I'm not sure who's projecting, but maybe go to the sheet that shows our zoning map, and then you can show those parcels, and then, because it's not the Wheelock property, it's actually the property on the opposite side.
Yes,
Right.
yes.
Yep, so that's the old Clark Farm, and we can do that. Matt's controlling it, we'll get you there. Matt, that will be part of,
Page 45.
There you go. So the parcels that are,
This is,
I don't know what you would call those, not too good on anything outside of the Roy G. Biv, but, yeah. Those are the parcels that cumulatively would total 16 acres. So minus any
Whoops.
one of those, they wouldn't meet the current 15-acre minimum parcel size.
The red.
Not the red,
The pink.
yeah,
Okay.
whatever you want to call it.
Okay.
Music.
so you're saying the 16 acres is all of those parcels added together?
it's all of the pink parcels together.
Between the red and the green.
11 parcels?
Yes.
And then if you can pan over to the subject parcel, you can see the other parcels that are currently in that zoning district that could, in theory, also benefit from the zoning change. So there's the like where Fieldstone is, and the parcels north and west of them, and then the parcels catty corner. So like where the insulation business is, the house that the road commission just bought, another vacant parcel, the church parcel, and then the apartments. The church parcel and the apartments obviously directly abut the mobile home park, so I think it's entirely conceivable that those could end up being converted. I know that the rent on the mobile home park is probably a lot better than those apartments, so.
All right, slight deviation from public comment, but we'll get back on track here. So is there any other members of the public that would like to offer comment on this topic?
Chris Crew, 3016 Collier Road. I didn't move since before. So manufactured housing is only allowed currently in the high-density residential area. And we're talking about adding it to local business as a permit, use by right thing. So what essentially it looks like, it's going to look like high-density residential in that space. It may not be high-density residential, but you talked about you or your new potential future owner could come with a pretty decent argument that says, hey, it looks like high-density residential, can we make it high-density residential? Which they'd have a pretty good case to say yes. And now you've got high-density residential in the local business district, which is not what we had been talked about before. If you guys get a smoking hot deal for property, in theory, you could sell it, and that manufactured home community goes away, and somebody converts it into high-density residential. Now they've got 2 septic systems and 2 water sources in what, and forgive me, and I know that you're not doing this, it's not called, but it kind of looks like a workaround what Eagle's saying without having to do a permit. So you're still going to potentially put 20,000 gallons down. It's just now you're going to do it over 2 systems instead of the 1, and working around not to have a permit. So by putting this in a use by right, I'm wondering if we can look at it as a conditional land use, which definitely puts you guys into the requirement in the mix to have to go through the site plan and put other conditions on it. So it doesn't allow it just to happen because somebody owns the property. The other thing is that the conditions, there's other conditions in a manufactured home community that are called out in the high-density residential. There's things like berms and other stuff like that. And perhaps if you're going to allow this, that those requirements end up being needed, those things need to be met if you make changes to your parcel that you're talking about. The other thing is if you split it and you want to go back to putting it together again, to have now, because if somebody purchases, the chances are they'll buy both of them. If they bought one of them, now you've got the sewer on one side used by the other parcel, so they have to buy 2 of them. Now, whether or not you can merge it back together again, I've heard some stuff about my trying to do some things and you can't split it and then merge it back again. So I don't know if that's going to cause problems. We know that we've got the peanut intersection.
Roundabout.
It is an allergy. It has, it's got all sorts of things associated with it, but this will put, if you expand, it will put more traffic on Straight Road, which from the township or the road commission's perspective might drive the need to do the peanut intersection as opposed to not. But the other question would be, is there a way to constrain this, and since this is North Activity Center, constrain it to the North Activity Center? Because you've got activity centers set up, each of them have their own little different nuances, and we knew the activity centers, this was one of the target areas to use instead of trying to make one document do all. But could this just be limited to the North Activity Center? That's it.
Thanks, Chris.
Yeah. I was short and sweet again. You get my 3 minutes.
Kay Ingraham, 5170 Jacks Trail. On April 22nd of last year, I witnessed the most disruptive meeting I've ever seen in this township. The West End business owners were upset with a change that is part of the master plan. After that meeting, you put a hold on all changes until the plans for the roundabout at the North Activity Center. Now you are being asked to change your master plan for manufactured homes at the north end. Mr. Stoner is picking and choosing what he needs changed in the master plan. No mention of the cost of the homes and what demographics will purchase them. No worries with using the resources and adding more traffic to a horrible, dangerous intersection. I was going to go more on a rant with Twin Lakes, but I think I'll wait.
Thanks, Kay. Would anybody else like to provide comment on this? All right, seeing nobody coming forward, we'll close the public hearing at 6:44. Sorry, I forgot to note when we opened it.
6:36.
Thanks.
Excuse me.
All right, deliberation. Or more questions, however we want to go about it. I guess the question I had is, does the Michigan standards governing these type of communities dictate how we look at them regarding use by right or conditional uses or special uses?
So you're allowed to have them as both a conditional land, we call them conditional land use, everybody else calls them special use permits. So you're allowed to have a conditional land use or a permitted use for manufactured housing communities. The burden of proof for a conditional land use would be many of the same standards that are found in 15.5. It would be largely governed by state requirements. So we would not be able to usurp the state requirement on that with the Manufactured Housing Community Act, but it would mimic what the state requires already, which are going to be a lot of the same uses, or same standards that are currently found in the zoning ordinance, because that's where we stole all those regulations from. But I guess the short answer is yes, you have the option to make it conditional or permitted.
So, a couple of things. One, I wanted to make sure, again, we're all in the same place. This is not a change in the master plan. The master plan actually specifically says to include this in this area, in this footprint, for the details. But I'm also just, there's a couple things that are at odds with each other in my thoughts, and that is that I have a problem when we, as a government, make something non-conforming, which basically doesn't allow people to use their property the way they should be able, they could have used their property. It wasn't because they did something wrong, it's because we made a decision like we're doing tonight. So I have a problem with that. The other side of that, though, is, and I'm also, just to put it out there, a real proponent of housing choice. So that is important. I think that's important for Long Lake Township as well. So in those ways, I think it's really good. In other ways, like having it a use by right or a conditional land use is something that I thought about too. Like, are there other standards that we can apply? Okay, Heidi. I don't have my glasses on. Is that it? Okay. So I think there are other things like screening. I mean, these are important things, right? Every time I drive by there and think about whether it's a peanut or like a real road, where are those homes that are along the road going to go? They have to go somewhere. And right now, they can't go anywhere. And so that's a problem. So to me, I think and then the other thing is we're talking about wanting to work on these activity centers. And last time I was at a meeting, I think they said this is the one we should work on first, right? So I hate to change something going, wait a minute, we're going to work on it in a little bit. So I think that middle road, even though I know it's more work, to saying let's make it a conditional land use, and during the time that we're really studying this area, we can see more the impacts that are going to happen from the different changes. I guess I just feel more comfortable with that. Because I think there's a lot going on here. And I don't want it to be where it's just an automatic, I think.
Cody, what are the downsides to a conditional land use?
I don't know that I'd categorize anything as a downside. Permitted versus conditional is when a conditional land use comes, staff is not allowed to approve it based on the merits of the zoning ordinance. The 7 of you have to review it on the merits of the zoning ordinance. So It's not a downside, it's a public hearing that would have to take place. The applicant would have to come and say, hey, we have an existing use that's manufactured housing community, we would like to, how would that even work from a zoning standpoint? They have an existing non-conforming use because they don't have a CLU for it. They'd have to come in front of you to prove the standards of that conditional land use so they could get an updated permit. So whatever standards you set forth, they would have to prove that they're meeting before us could issue them a CLU. If you don't change any of the standards that are currently listed in the proposed ordinance, there's functionally no difference between the two because they're still gonna have to prove the same standards. If you want to put additional standards above what's currently proposed, then that's when something like a conditional land use would have more power to review that and be able to impose standards like Commissioner Allen was saying, maybe screening or something like that that's above and beyond what's currently required by the state.
Am I correct in saying that conditional land use that does not have to be approved by the township board and zoning board?
Correct. Text amendment changes have to, so this, no matter what you guys decide tonight, it still has to go to the township board for approval or denial. Applications, the board has given you 7 the right to process applications from a conditional versus permitted standpoint, so it would just come in front of you. So if you did choose, if say your choice was to recommend it to the board with the change that it goes from a permitted use to a conditional use, the board passes that, their next steps would then be to come back to you guys with a conditional land use application saying, this is us proving that we're meeting all these metrics. Can we get a permit, please? And the other, I guess, just to compound one more thing on that, the other standards that you guys have to prove it against are our general standards for conditional land uses that talk about like meeting the master plan and meeting those types of things that I always put out on a sheet for us when we have applications. Those are also the other burdens of proof that they would have to do.
And then, conditional land use review and approval by us, we would be looking at a site plan and then that's where we would say, well, we think you really need to put a berm and a row of trees here.
Yes, so you'd have some flexibility in that, just not as much flexibility with other conditional land use because that use is protected by the state. So what I mean by that is if we had a business that wants to come in, you guys would actually have a little more regulatory power to put conditions on that business because that business's use isn't controlled by the state, but manufactured housing communities are. So we couldn't usurp state law on that. So we couldn't tell them they have to have a berm if the state law says you don't have to have, we'd have less flexibility than other uses.
The main stumbling block, as I understand it, is the minimum parcel size, correct? The 15 to the 10.
That would be the most significant change for manufactured housing communities in the.
So if the applicant were so inclined, they could request conditional zoning with just that change for just this parcel.
No, we would have to change the literature of the zoning ordinance itself, changing that minimum.
So I'm concerned about, we've talked about this for 52 minutes, not even 50 minutes, half hour, let's say, about some unintended consequences. Not so much about this parcel. I'm empathetic to what you're up against. I know that the regulations are a myriad of obstacles to overcome. But I am concerned about the impact that this could have on other parcels in the community and folks that probably very unaware that this discussion is happening and now we allow a new use by right that hasn't been allowed, or we recommend that this be allowed. So I'm not super comfortable moving forward. I would be very comfortable moving forward with some sort of a voluntary conditional zoning amendment that would only affect this parcel or perhaps even a sliver of the adjacent parcel. To try and achieve the goals that these folks are trying to do.
Allowed to put a maximum use, like maximum acreage?
Sure, I think so. It's dependent. I would have to look at the state law and make sure we're not breaking any of their statutes.
Yeah, I wonder if it would be because, that would help, right? Sure it could be 10, but it can't be 25 or it can't be 45 or whatever.
Well, what I'm hearing Commissioner Wagner say is, and correct me if I'm wrong, if I'm understanding you wrong, you're worried the unintended consequence is that you'll allow this use as a permitted use in this district. Somebody's going to go buy 10 acres of land and then put a new manufactured housing community there.
And I'm not even saying that's such a bad thing, but
Right.
it's just a pretty big change for how those parcels have been
It is.
contemplated.
I guess my point to that would be that currently we allow it in another district in the township, and it currently hasn't been chosen by developers as a way to develop. Every developer that comes in and talks to staff always talks about site condominiums. They get their best ROI that way, and from the trends I'm seeing, Long Lake Township will continue to be site condominium developed, because they can make better money that way. And unfortunately, a lot of our developers are looking at strictly ROI, so that they're gonna be incentivized by what can make the most money. I just don't logically see somebody buying up 10 acres of local business, and instead of putting a business there or some other use where they can make better profit, they're gonna put a mobile home or manufactured community in there. I see it as it's a potential. You're 100% correct. They could do that with this literature change. I don't see it as practical.
I mean, my personal feelings here, I feel that there is a need for this type of housing in this community, and it would be a logical place to expand it next to an existing one. But I'm just concerned, though, that by making this change, that this then becomes an allowed use by right for all those parcels with that zoning. And like I say, I'm just a little concerned about the unintended consequences here.
The other way to geofence it, I guess, to use a mapping term, is to confine it to the North Activity Center. The only issue we have with that currently is the North Activity Center is not defined in our zoning ordinance. So you'd have to define the boundaries of the North Activity Center and then have an overlay zone that says specifically in the North Activity Center for parcels under the local business district, you are allowed to have this use as a use by right or a conditional use, whatever you so choose. But it would be an extra, almost a secondary district on top of it. And that's kind of the dichotomy that we've been running into between general business and local business as a whole. And when we're talking about activity centers, we should almost have 3 different zones for each activity center with their own set of regulations, because it would make it cleaner and make it easier to have these types of discussions, but we don't currently have that. And in order to get that in place takes a lot of legwork. So when, the applicant comes to staff and says, how do I be able to move my units around? This is the most straightforward way to do it, but there are other ways to accomplish the same goal.
So, Dan, the other thing, oh, sorry.
I was just going to say, trying to avoid having to rewrite half the zoning ordinance to get these folks where they need to go. If I was in your shoes, I'm just telling you, I would feel very comfortable with a conditional rezoning of this parcel. I'm not comfortable.
So we're not conditionally
changing the right-
rezoning anything?
I know we're not,
Okay.
and we can't require that. I'm just saying, I'm uncomfortable with what's in front of me tonight, and I'm just trying to express my own personal
Yeah.
views, that I would be comfortable on just this parcel, but I am uncomfortable in allowing this in the entire zoning district. That affects numerous parcels.
So the reason I like conditional land uses, even though they're a pain in the rear, is because I look at those as those are they have some subjectivity to them, right? Or everything else, a use by right is objective. They did it, they didn't, they did it, they didn't, right? And when you get to the ability to say, but in this particular situation, we have a traffic issue, and so we want to look at it a little bit differently. Or in this particular situation, it abuts Bullhead Lake, right? That's different. So allowing a conditional use of still the same thing, right? But not something that is just an automatic, if your site plan's good, you're done. That makes me way more comfortable. For one thing, because a developer, like by Wheelox, isn't going to buy up all that wondering if they're going to pass anything subjective, right? So, and then it also puts us in a position we haven't made a definite one way or the other when it comes to this activity center. Because that's like on our thing for this year, right? So, but we all know the mobile home park is there. We all know that they're probably going to need to move some homes, which would mean, I don't know how many people were along there, but a bunch of them would lose their homes. This is kind of a win-win to me. So that's why
why I'm saying this.
What's a win-win? Putting it as conditional?
Yes. Or lose-lose, depending on how you look at it.
I guess I'm curious why the zoning was never changed to an appropriate,
We actually changed it the wrong way, and I do
Right.
think it was maybe just before you, but we did like a big re-zoning ordinance thing, and we're all going, but you get that some of these businesses like aren't gonna be able to operate anymore, right? And so we did it.
but if we went and say they came with a conditional offer to rezone to medium-density residential, that would be the only, or wherever it's allowed by, and then as part of that offer, it was only the manufactured housing community was the only thing allowed. I mean, I've seen zoning offers, I call them zoning offers, that's what I think the legal folks like to
So,
present them as.
not to cut you off, Bob, but my understanding is what you're asking is why the applicant can't come forward and say, hey, can I conditionally rezone to high density, and then I'd be a use by right anyways? For
Something along those lines, yeah.
I don't believe conditional rezoning is allowed other than low-density residential. So you'd have to be base zoned as low-density residential, ask for a conditional rezone to something different, and then revert back if you abandon that use. My understanding is if your local business currently, you can't conditionally go to high density. It'd have to be a full rezoning application where we change the underlying base district. So for example, Food for Thought building was low-density residential. They asked for a conditionally rezoning to local business so that they could put Food for Thought there. It was approved at the time, and now it sits there. If they ever abandon that use, it goes back to low density.
And that process is spelled out in our ordinance or state law?
Yeah, it's under section 2.3 that talks about official zoning map. There's item 1 says conditional zoning, and it says it's subject to the following. And then because it says conditional zoning, and then item B says in the event that a primary building on the land conditionally zoned local business is removed, the land reverts to low-density residential. So it's specifically saying that the only conditional zoning that allows is from LDR to LB. And you can't take something LB and make it something else. You'd have to go through a full rezoning in order to do that.
And then it would have to match the master plan. You can't just
Correct.
spot
Yeah, you
rezone.
can't spot zone, and for better or for worse, that parcel is surrounded mostly by PUD and other local business, so it'd be difficult to approve a high-density spot zoning there. It would be more apt and better suited if it was conditionally rezoned, if you want some review power for that.
Cody, the way this reads, it says land identified on the zoning map as conditionally zoned is subject to the following. So wouldn't that only apply to the singular parcel that we have conditionally zoned?
Yeah, probably.
So
So it might not even be eligible at a base, is what you're saying?
no, what I'm saying is I don't think our zoning ordinance dictates how we address conditional zoning, if you're referring to this section, but
I guess we'd have to get back to you on that.
yes,
Yeah.
So I think, we got a lot of questions on how we get to where we're going.
So that's my question. Let's say I wanted to make a motion, they didn't cover this in my citizen planner. Make a motion saying, so basically, we kind of have to, do we have to come back to it again next week or next month and say, okay, we're reviewing this with the conditional, or can we tonight say, we agree with, well, you probably have a different, I don't know if you have a different number, if we want to make it a conditional land use instead of a use
That's a
by
good
right.
question. As the application currently sits, it sits as a permitted use. So if that's the case, what I would recommend to you is to recommend denying it to the township board with the understanding that if it was a conditional land use, you would have support to recommend the application.
Or, correct me if I'm wrong, we could table this.
Correct.
And allow staff to converse with the applicant and maybe think of a way to continue the discussion.
And, I mean, we haven't asked Kyle either, but the applicant may voluntarily agree to the conditional rezone and amend their application.
Not
That is-
conditional rezone.
Not a conditional rezone,
Us
a
changing the zone-
CLU.
changing
Conditional
the
land use,
zone
we use the
is-
word conditional too much. So the applicant may decide to amend their application to a CLU instead of a permitted use, that is their prerogative to do so. And if that's the case, then it sounds like there's some support for that from a few. I don't want to speak for your voting because you haven't voted yet. So, but as it sits right now, Tina, to answer your original question, if you
I'd have to
didn't,
deny, if it.
you would
with no more
recommend denying.
information.
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
But if you wanted to table it, you could have the applicant come back with further information.
I think one other thing to consider in this is that tabling it and asking the applicant to come back with a conditional approach, that would stand a lot better chance of approval before the township board.
Yeah.
Because my concern is we send it to the township board and they say no, and it just takes more time.
And this is complicated enough for us, and it's more complicated for the township board. Because they don't do this every day.
Yeah, and we've had a public hearing and we've, so I think we could, seems like the path of least resistance to me. If the applicant just
If they're
says,
not,
no,
yeah.
that's a deal breaker for me, then we can come back and.
And I'll make sure to consult with legal if that's the route you do choose, so that we're following the right procedural path to make sure that we're not wasting time for the applicant or our time for our meetings.
Sounds good.
Did you have a comment or question?
I don't see the difference between a conditional and zoning, rezoning it, because the standards are gonna be the same either way, but, I guess, I'm not uncomfortable with it. If someone wants to build another mobile home park, they'll just buy a parcel that's already zoned high density residential. They're not gonna buy 16 businesses and tear them down across from Wheelox. So I don't think that's a legitimate fear. It's already a modular home park, mobile home park, and it sounds like it's more than just, can we add on? It's, can we exist, or do we have to start kicking people out because we can't permit our septic system the way it is without doing pre-treatment, which I know they just rebuilt that system within the last 5 years, because I saw them working there and they redid all the tanks and pumps. And so I guess I'm okay if that's the way everyone else feels as far as it needs to be conditional, but I'm comfortable with the way it is.
Can I just interject one more thing, Bob?
Yeah, sure.
Can you pull up your zoning ordinance and go to 19.1.3, please? So, Max, to your comment that there's not a functional difference between permitted and conditional, if you don't decide to add any more controlling standards to 15.5, you're right in that aspect, but the other items that you have to compare it against are found in the standards for granting conditional land use approval. And I just asked Matt to pull them up, sorry for the, it's page 150 if you're looking for the number. But there is, there are 7 general standards that a conditional land use have to abide by. None of what you've discussed tonight seems to go too far outside of those conditional items, right here, A through G. So things like it shall be harmonious with, in accordance with the goals, objectives, and the portion of the master plan. It sounds like you're already recognizing that the master plan calls for expansion of this, it would meet that. But these are your standards that you'd approve it against. So this is, I guess, your basis of burden.
Except The difference is, we don't have a site plan in front of us. So
Correct.
those are looking at a very specific, this is what we want to do, so that we can say, okay, in this instant, we don't like the fact that you have 150 instead of 100, you know,
So even if
whatever.
it was a permitted use, they would have to come in before you with a site plan in order to change anything on the
I
ground.
agree with that.
And site plans can be conditional, so, well, maybe they can't be.
If you can.
You have more power with the conditional land use, I
Yes.
will say that. You will have more power to impose conditions as long as they don't usurp state statute. So that is 100% correct, yeah.
Kyle, you heard a lot of stuff tonight, I guess is, are you, if we were to table this and allow you and staff to discuss it and maybe pivot to something else, I mean, how did, is that?
Let me just unofficially say that we would not be at all opposed to conditional land use. I think without really understanding the process, right, and I've obviously just read kind of some standards here. Without understanding the process, what I wrestle with a little bit is, you know, I don't know how long the five of you are going to be here. We all understand the intent of what we're discussing here today, so, you know, myself, even if it's 3 or 4 months from now, and, you know, 3 of you aren't here, and there's, you know, they don't understand what took place here tonight, and my intentions, and they only have different feelings, and so, I'm certainly okay with tabling this tonight, just so we can talk more, I can understand what that process looks like, and, right, so I think we're okay with that.
Okay. I just,
It sounds like that's probably comfortable for everyone.
yeah, I just want to, you know, make sure we're all understanding, you know, as opposed to us denying it as it's written, and then I think then you're back to square one. So,
And that idea that it's going to, it would then, it'd have to go back to the township board. If we recommend denial, they're going to think that it's no good, and, you know,
Understand.
that's probably where it's.
and I think, from my perspective, my point of view, my opinion is that I agree that this is the spot to allow expansion, you know, and that you should be able to do that, you know, within reason. I'm kind of with Dan as far as I don't want unintended consequences of other parcels in the business district, you know, but, so. That's really all I have for it. So, yeah, I guess if we're done deliberating it, I guess, we need to have some motion to do something.
I'd make a motion that we table zoning ordinance amendment 02-26-01. I don't know if I need to provide any reasons for that. I would guess I would say to give applicant and staff more time to consider options and come back to us with either the same or revised proposal. I think it's, yeah.
Support.
So we have a motion by Dan and support by Tina to table this zoning ordinance amendment to allow the applicant and staff to consider other options. Is there any further discussion about that? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. All right. So moving on to new business is our first,
Pending business,
oh,
which there is none.
pending business, there is none. New business, we have, item A would be our 2026 meeting schedule. I guess the only question I have is there any any dates anybody knows that we need to consider changing? Otherwise, I think it's the regular fourth Tuesday schedule. Do we need to do anything official with this, or just,
It's included in your packet for recognition mainly. I know you guys don't attend all the other meetings at all times necessarily, and I email them to you, but just so the public's aware and you guys are aware, that's the current meeting schedule for the year. And if you do decide to change something, just let us know and we'll help you get it changed.
sounds good. Item B is our 2025 year-end report. So Cody prepared a report, and this gets presented to the board, correct? And we have a couple possible actions to approve the report, to submit to the township, or amend it, or table it. I didn't see anything glaring in it to flag.
A lot of this is just reporting data from the past year, so it goes through the special land uses and the site plan reviews that you guys conducted, some of the activities that were performed. We started including zoning board of appeal cases on this report, just so planning and zoning report could all be in one spot for the township board. I think the biggest thing staff was looking for input on this is your 2026 priorities as far as where you'd like to spend time in the upcoming year. That is found on page 4 of the annual report. I included items that were currently being worked on, and then I also included items that were in phase 1A of the master plan, which is the current phase that we've been slowly working on. But I invite you to add or subtract from that list as deemed necessary. And as it stands right now, the items are tree preservation efforts with the natural features inventory update that the board is currently working on through GEI. The ongoing zoning ordinance amendments that have been talked about before, impervious surfaces, especially in lakeside residential, dwelling unit definitions, multifamily development standards, housing infrastructure as a whole, and then updating commonly used parts of the zoning ordinance as instructed by staff for things that we see on a day-to-day basis. And then, as always, ongoing training and education for staff and commission members alike. So I guess I'd invite you to comment if there's anything that's been missed or needed to be added to that.
Where are we on the, I'm backwards all the time. Back asswards, as my mother said. Accessory dwelling units.
Sure. So that's further as far as my update goes. But ADUs, so that was zoning ordinance amendment 09-2503 was recommended to the township board for approval. The township board chose to deny that zoning ordinance amendment. They did not cite any other further action, so that is in the planning commission's court. If you guys decide that you would like to work on ADUs and change the proposal to the township board at some level, either district or regulation, you can submit another zoning ordinance amendment to them. If you decide that you don't want to spend time on that, that is also your prerogative as well. So that's totally up to planning commission prerogative on how you'd like to handle that moving forward.
I don't know if it'd be appropriate for me to speak.
I think so, yeah.
Township board liaison. I think there is general support for an ADU in some capacity, something probably much more limited than what was proposed. So I would like to add it on. I wouldn't like to see all this previous work go for naught. Personally, I think that I think it has some legs. They're just quite a bit smaller than the ones that they arrived on the first time.
I think there's a lot of clarification that needs to be done to exactly what it means to be an ADU. So we can work on some of those things. Those are some of the questions I heard.
I'd support adding that to our 2026 list.
Okay.
Anybody else?
Just also to mention, you're not bound by this report. You can work on whatever you decide. This is just educating the township board and what your priorities for 2026 are moving forward. So you're not limited, just note the big items that you do plan on tackling should be on here so they're aware.
Not surprising, though, the ADU discussion, certainly bled into the short-term rental discussions too, and I think that would be good to keep on the list personally. I'd to maybe revisit that, see if there's some tweaks that could maybe benefit some things, I don't know.
Do we
gotta-
need to have direction from the board to do that?
I don't
I
believe
mean,
so.
kind of, right?
I mean, these are our planning commission
Oh, okay.
priorities, so I think we can put anything on the list. But I would encourage my fellow planning commissioners to maybe go back and watch that last meeting. We had, I would say, one of the more productive discussions that we've had in the 20-plus years I've been on the township board about short-term rentals and some of the things, some of the trends that are emerging. Some folks spoke specifically about some things that are happening on Edgewood. I can't remember exactly what it was, but essentially the last several parcels that have sold and been converted, and now they have a very high, disproportionately high number of short-term rental properties on them. So it just,
I just wonder, is short-term rental, is it in the zoning ordinance?
It's currently not in the zoning ordinance. Legal asked the planning commission to put it in the zoning ordinance, forgive me, it's been a year and a half maybe. And at the time, the planning commission decided not to adopt it, citing a couple factors, one of them being grandfathering in the use. The township board has asked staff to go back to Todd and our legal team and get a full, clear understanding of if we did add that to the zoning ordinance, how that grandfathering would work in with a police power that says you have to have a certification in order to operate. So there's some clarification that the township board is also working on to make sure that that's understood fully before decisions made.
I agree with Dan, I'd like to add that, whether we get to do it or not, let's try it. I look at the process, not the decisions, but the process for looking at accessory dwelling units and where they belong, and short-term rentals and where they might belong, as the same kind of process, and once we get one down, I think it'll be easier to look at the other one.
I think, I mean, those that have attended these meetings have heard me say this a lot, but I think declaring a clear intent and then making it practical and making it enforceable is always the three things I harp on. I think we had a very good outlined intent with ADUs. The difference, I think, is what the township board viewed as practical versus what the planning commission viewed as practical might have some gap that needs to be closed. As far as short-term rentals, I think the township board is very close to defining a clear intent, and understanding how that works with the planning commission zoning ordinance is going to be key to that. So definitely moving forward in that process like you're mentioning.
Okay. Guess, anything else anybody wants to add? Otherwise, we can look for a motion to approve, amend, or table.
I don't know, you need a motion, but if you want one, Bob, I'd make a motion that we adopt the 25 annual report with the addition of adding accessory dwelling units and short-term rentals to the 2026 Planning Commission priority list.
Who's first? So we have a motion by Dan to approve our report and send it to, with the amendments of ADUs and short-term rental topics, and send it to the board, and support by Max. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, then all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, our report will be sent to the board. Planning Commission, next Planning Commission bylaw review. Cody's got some highlighted updates suggested. I guess you
I
want
do, and I promise it
highlight
looks
those?
way worse than it is. There's a big sections that I moved around, but the bylaws have not been amended since 2023. And so my recommendation as staff, and then also to the planning commission as a whole, is to look at that on a every other year basis, biennial basis, just to keep up with current trends or any things that need to be changed. So I'm going to just briefly walk you through the changes that I'm proposing for you, and then obviously you can take or leave them as you like. Anything yellow I've added or removed. If it's strike through, it's been removed, and honestly, a lot of it that was removed was just put into a different section. So section 2.11, I added the title officer selection and duties because it didn't specify in the previous draft who we were selecting. And then we currently don't have an election procedure. It defaults back to parliamentary procedure. And I'll be honest with you, I don't necessarily want to quote the full 6 pages of election procedure that it takes in order to elect officers. So I just put a brief election procedure in there, which is common on a couple of the other boards that I serve on, which is basically by a simple majority voice vote of the members present, election shall be conducted separately for each position, and then any commission member may nominate either themselves or somebody else to hold office so that they can be voted on. The only person that can't be nominated for either the chair or vice chair in this instance is Dan, as he's an ex officio member for being on the township board. He could be nominated for secretary. That is something that's currently allowed. And then the officer duties is something that is already in your bylaws. I just moved under the officer section. And then same with officer tenure. And then I specified the commissioner duties, which is, you can see I took out the officer duties section of it, and then everything that relates to everybody on the commission is under section 2.2. So I kind of cleaned it up a little bit. It's not going to functionally change how you guys have conducted business over the years. It's just making the bylaws reflect that. Same thing with section 2.3 tenure. I changed the location and then renumbered through section 2. Section 3.4, I added the correction, renoticed was typoed wrong, so I corrected that. Section 3.5 on public hearings, under item D, there's, this is what you see on a lot of your agendas. I copy it right out of your bylaws, and it says presentation of request and recommendation by planner and staff. I would prefer that language to be memorandum by planner and staff. Staff can give recommendation if they so choose. A lot of the times I choose to educate instead of give you my opinion on that. And then the word or needed to be added to item number 7. And then as far as order of business for 3.8 goes, I changed where correspondence is on our agenda. Right now, our correspondence is towards the end of our agenda, so you guys technically don't acknowledge or read correspondence until after business is done. It makes more sense to me if we put it after public comment, because that's what it is written in public comment. So that would be my suggestion. And then I also changed it for special meetings as well. I think that order of operations is more productive. And then I think I added one clarification line under, section 6, where it's discussing conflicts of interest, and it's discussing that if somebody has a conflict of interest, they should not participate at the meeting. It should have the language on the issue. So if you as a commissioner have a conflict of interest, like Commissioner Vershape did with the YMCA, you have to step out of the room, not participate just on that topic, but everything else in front of the planning commission that you don't have a conflict, you can come back. We just don't specify that. That it's pursuant to that issue. And then the only other thing I did was just administratively on the top header, I put adopted and then a date that you so choose to adopt the changes. That way we always know which copy we're looking at moving forward. Questions, comments, concerns, insults?
No insults.
Okay, well, that's good. So that's what staff is recommending. Obviously, you're more than welcome to change or approve or deny any of those that you so choose.
I have no issues. Unless anybody else has any commentary, I would make a motion that we adopt the changes as presented by staff.
So we have a motion by Dan and support by Tina to adopt the bylaw changes as presented. Is there any discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right. Those are approved.
Those changes take effect immediately, so your officer selection process can follow that
I was just gonna say.
selection process now that's in the bylaws.
Need to go find a new one.
Well, I guess, you kind of, all right, give me the Reader's Digest.
So now when you get to item D, officer elections,
Yes.
follow your election procedure on the first page of your draft, because that is now no longer a draft, it's live.
Okay.
And I apologize, but I'll be right back.
All right, let me, election shall be conducted by a simple majority vote of the members present. Election shall be conducted separately for each officer position. Any commission member may nominate themselves or another eligible commissioner for any position. Nominations may be made from the floor during the election meeting. All right, so the first item is to nominate and elect a chairperson. So I would like to shake things up a little bit and nominate Tina Allen to be the chairperson.
I support that.
That was fast.
I-
I would like to be the chair. Bob and I talked about it. I'm excited to get back into it.
So we have,
I thought you were going to nominate one of the folks that aren't here tonight. That would have been
there's other opportunities for that. So,
there's other opportunities.
so we have, we've nominated Tina and she hasn't turned us down. So by a voice vote, or does anybody have any comments? Then all in favor of Tina Allen being the chairperson, say aye. Aye. Did anybody oppose that? All right, Tina is the chairperson, and that is effective immediately.
No, it isn't. It's the end of the meeting.
Is it? I don't know.
It says February,
Is it effective at the end of the meeting or going at this moment?
I think it says February 28th.
Yeah, it has to be signed
Oh, all right.
until whoever the new secretary is.
Sorry, your question is, does the change to the draft take effect now, or does the officer election take effect now?
Trying to hand over the chairperson to me.
It does. Yep, 100% it does. Yeah, let me find the exact wording.
I thought I read that before.
Yeah,
And it's just it occurs by a voice vote, so.
under officer tenure, section 2.1.2 now, it says the officer shall take office immediately following their election. I mean, really bylaws are just agreements between you seven, so, I mean, do what you wish, but that's how I read it, so.
So then, that means that we are taking nominations for the vice chair.
If he would accept it, I would nominate Bob to stand as vice chair.
I support that.
I'll accept that.
All right, then let's do a voice vote. Bob for vice chair. What? Oh, was there a second? Yeah. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Then I'm going to leave the room and you'll be chair. No. Okay.
Not tonight.
Two complaints. So now I would like to take nominations for secretary.
I'm not sure what the secretary even does with this body.
So the secretary shall be responsible for making sure the recording secretary, AKA Heidi in this instance, follows the correct procedure to ensure efficient, informed commission operations. I will just let you know that secretary, you have a very easy job because Heidi does a very wonderful job, so.
There was another thing I read though.
What's that?
If the chair isn't here and the vice chair isn't here, the
Correct.
secretary has to be the chair. So you aren't allowed to be chair. So
I would not, I would not want to be.
you were not thinking of
No,
yourself.
I do not want any more responsibility, even as de minimis as it might be, so.
Max, are you secretary right now?
Tim was, right?
Oh,
Tim Figura was, yeah, and the other responsibility, I guess I should say, that secretaries have is to sign the minutes after they get approved. I will almost always have that on your desk as ready to go unless there's an amendment needed, so.
I suspect Tim may not be unwilling to continue in that
Think
role.
so. So, Max or Dan, are either of you interested in being the secretary? You're not?
We can always give it to the guy that isn't here, too.
Yeah, I think Tim was perfectly fine doing it. I don't think he would object to that.
He's no longer
He's not on.
commission chair. Sorry, the one thing that we didn't get to was to welcome our new commission members. We kind of jumped right
Well,
into
one's
business.
not here,
I feel it.
One is not here, that's correct.
so,
I would not have a problem with that, no.
okay. I think that'd probably be best since, I mean,
I'll,
if there's a motion. for that.
I'll nominate Max Bott to be the secretary of the board.
I'll support that.
All right, then, let's vote. My screen went on Max Bott as secretary. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that is carried. Now I have to go find this. What's left here? I do want the agenda, yeah. Where are we?
We are the next public.
All right, we are at brief public comment. It looks like most of our public left, but would anyone left like to make public comment at this time? All right, seeing none, see how easy that was?
It's like secondhand
I
nature.
don't have any problems, Bob. So we're at reports. So do we typically, since I haven't been
We
here,
just go-
is this
I
more
just
like
go down the
a,
list, so-
okay, township board report, Dan?
So in January, I'm sure everybody's acutely aware, we had a very robust discussion about ADUs. As I mentioned earlier, I encourage everybody to go back, maybe watch that meeting. I think folks we had a very open, I think, honest discussion about how folks feel. And then at our February meeting, we also got into a very robust, I think, open, honest discussion about short-term rentals. Notwithstanding that it's not in our ordinance, I think that the township board would feel more comfortable getting some input from the planning commission on that particular topic. Certainly is, I think, probably the most controversial topic that occurs in our discussions regularly, so and that's really it. That was really the only that came on our February meeting was the short-term rental discussion.
Thank you. Next, zoning board of appeals report.
Really nothing to report from the ZBA. We haven't had a meeting since October because Matt does an excellent job of telling people what they're gonna be able to do and not do, so.
Okay, great, thanks. Planner update report, do you have anything else?
Yeah, I have a few things, sorry. I'll keep it brief. There's, for most of you, excluding Dan, because he has a trustee, there is a new email inside that folder. Some of you are already utilizing it, some of you are not, but that's for Long Lake Township business, specifically the Planning Commission, so you don't have to use your personal email for Planning Commission business. Feel free to go to office.com and log in with your temporary password. If you have issues, give me a quick call. If it's systemic issues, we'll give our third-party IT looped in to get that fixed for you. There's also a educational opportunity called Stand By Your Plan, hosted by East Bay Township and Grand Traverse County, but it's actually going to be run by a member of the APA, the American Planning Association. That's in your packet. If you desire to attend, please let me know. I'll get your RSVP in. The ZOAs that were put to the Township Board, Trustee Wagner already spoke on the ADU ordinance. Housekeeping updates was also put in front of the Township Board that approved, so we went ahead and made sure we got the corrections in the zoning ordinance. If you guys want an updated copy, let me know. They're all grammatical in nature, so you're not going to see a huge difference. for substance, but please let me know. I'll make sure you get a hold of that. And then the tree preservation efforts, that was something that was a special committee that was created in 2025. We had a couple public meetings where I am currently holding a draft report of the findings of that committee and needs some further work. The goal of that is to coincide with the GEI updates of the natural features inventory, which should be delivered later this spring or early summer. So what I would be looking for, because Commissioner Murphy is no longer on the commission, is if there'd be somebody who might be interested in participating in that, to please let me know. I know Commissioner Springsteen has been a part of it originally, so he might be interested in it as well. But I'm bringing it up today so that if you are interested, please let me know and I'll let you know dates, times, all that good stuff. Other than that, Commissioner Allen, I think that's my report.
Thank you. It looks like correspondence is next. That was just the one we already have?
Yep.
Yep.
We got one from.
Oh, Networks Northwest.
Yep, Networks Northwest on behalf of Blair Township,
Okay.
speaking on their master plan updates.
Okay. Are there any other commissioner comments?
I don't have any.
You chatty group of folks. Okay, I have one. I had a citizen ask me why there were no planning commission minutes for 2025 on the website.
There are some for 2025, but not all. I'm still waiting on signatures for a majority of them, and I don't like to upload them without the signature on them. So once I get those, I'll make sure they get adopted, or get published up there.
Okay, thank you. And our person who has to sign them is no longer on the planning commission?
Correct.
Okay.
Can the new secretary sign them?
I don't know, I'll have to ask Todd on that one. Maybe. I doubt it, but maybe.
He was here.
What do you mean?
I mean, Max would have been.
Oh, yeah, potentially. If not, I will make sure we get them. I've asked a few times, but I'll ask again.
Thank you. Okay, then we are adjourned.
Perfect.